3 crypto spot ETFs got approved today during the government shutdown, and everybody's losing their minds because it is not XRP. Hadera's spot ETF and Litecoin's spot ETF via Canary were approved, and Bitwise's Solana staking spot ETF was approved. I've got news for you. The market does not care about your feelings. The overlords do not care about your feelings. But let's go ahead and talk about why you have nothing to worry about and why the XRP spot ETFs and others will eventually be approved with the rest of crypto. If you guys have been following the show, you know that Xrp spot ETF was approved a while back, September 18th, 2025. And this was approved under the 1940s SEC Act, which is different than the Solana staked ETF, the Hadera ETF, and the Litecoin ETF. Those are under Act 30. And don't worry, I'll explain to you how all this works, especially when the government shut down, because I know it's very confusing. So the Xrp spot ETF is some exposure to XRP, but not full exposure to XRP. So it gets a little bit complicated. But at the end of the day, it's still an XRP spot ETF. Plus, a lot of the XRP futures ETFs are doing insanely well. So me personally, I'm not pressed about any of the other crypto ETFs getting approved. They will get approved. And again, the government is still shut down. Technically, though, the Hadera, Litecoin, and Sol staking spot ETFs are technically the first pure spot ETFs for these assets. And they did launch under the Securities Act of 1933. And according to ETF analysts, they're technically preferred. That's great, fine, fantastic. It's literally not a race. And it takes a long time for these particular assets to gain momentum, to gain liquidity, volume, all of that type of stuff. And then guess what happens? Number goes up. Well, could go up, not financial advice. And this is another reason why diversification is so important. You never want to put all your eggs in one basket. But again, in my personal opinion, I think we will see some sort of altcoin season start once the government opens up, once a lot of these spot ETFs get approved, so on and so forth. Now, how did these ETFs get approved, but all the other ones didn't? Well, according to ET analyst James S., he says that they were likely enabled by a Q&A guidance letter from the SEC's Division of Corporate Finance. Question 11 of 22 in the guidance appears to be the critical detail, but the questions are not publicly available, which that makes total sense. You want to know why? Because nothing ever do is fully transparent. And we're talking about TradFi, the banking system, that's the ivory towers. And I personally believe that a lot of these laws that were created to enable this stuff are for specific folks, but I digress. That's why retail is so important. That's why I continue to advocate for them. But James also said that the guidance originally focused on the IPOs of securities, but ETFs are securities too. Lawyers from Canary, Bitwise, Grayscale, NASDAQ, and NYSE deemed the language sufficient to move forward, and the change was minor. Basically, old versus new language was highlighted in the guidance, and no other firms have reportedly added this language yet, which is why we haven't seen any other approvals. Also remember that the SEC changed the guidelines. Or was it the CFTC? Well, some of the guidelines. It's basically easier to register it is easier to get approved as an ETF, because if you have a futures ETF that is mature, trading for 6 months, then it's easier to get the spot ones approved. And that's how Xrp did it. Either way, today is a massive win for the crypto industry and a massive win for altcoins in general. If you're somebody that's upset that XRP did not get picked, it will. Be patient. And also remember, the market doesn't care about you or your feelings. You need to take a step back and control your emotions. Bye. And you got this.